Hey chemists, these are the answers to our review practice problems. Let's look at the first one. It says the following questions refer to calcium chloride, which is CaCl₂. I do have a small little version of the periodic table here. I could zoom in. If I want to get the molar mass, which is the first question, what is the molar mass of CaCl₂? I need the masses of each element on the periodic table. The masses for this periodic table are right here. We have Ca is 40.078. Cl all the way over here, 35.45. On our periodic table, we might see it at the bottom, but there are many different periodic tables. So now if I want to get the molar mass, it looks like there's 1 Ca and 2 Cls. I need the masses of 1 Ca plus the mass of 2 Cl. So I'll do 1 times 40 and I have the numbers over here, 0.8 grams plus 2 times 35.45 grams for the chlorine. If I add those up on a calculator, I get a total mass of about 110.98, and the units would be gram per mole. This will be the molar mass, sometimes represented by mm, of CaCl₂. I will need that in order to do the next two calculations. Okay, so now the next one says how many grams are in 0.1 mole of calcium chloride. So I'm given 0.1 mole of calcium chloride. Well, the equation that we need to use is moles times the molar mass will give me the mass, which is grams, by the way, and I put this at the top here. If something's asking or calculating for mass, it's asking for what are the grams. So it says how many grams, I'm asking for mass. So let's do this math now. I'll do 0.100 mole times the molar mass, 110.98 gram per mole. If I do this calculation, I will get 11.10 grams of CaCl₂. And there are my two answers there. And then the third one here says, how many moles are in 332.94 grams of calcium chloride? So I'm given grams now, and I want to know moles. I have to use this equation. I take my mass, which, again, mass is grams. I take my mass. If I divide it by the molar mass, I will get moles. So let's do that now. My mass is 332.94 grams. I divide it by the molar mass, which is 110.98 grams per mole. If I divide those two numbers, I'll put 332.94 over 110.98 in the calculator. I get exactly 3, and we'll call that moles. I was looking for moles of CaCl₂. That is how you do question 1 regarding CaCl₂. Let's look at question 2 now. It says how many grams, which is a mass, are in 3 moles of NH3, and I gave you the molar mass is 17 grams per mole. If I want to get mass, and I'm given moles and molar mass, moles times molar mass right here is the equation, is going to give me my grams mass. So let's do that math. Moles times the molar mass, which is 17 grams per mole. If I do this math on a calculator, I will get 51 grams of NH3. That is how you convert from moles to grams. Let's do another question. How many moles, so it's asking for moles, are in 88 grams of CO2? And the molar mass I gave to you is 44.0 grams per mole. Now, if I want moles, and I'm given mass in grams here, mass divided by molar mass is equal to moles. So let's do that. 88 grams divided by 44 grams per mole, and these both have to do with CO2. If I do this math on a calculator, 88 divided by 44, I simply get 2 moles of CO2. Final answer done right there. All right, let's do the next one. It says the following questions refer to sodium sulfate, which is Na₂SO₄. I already looked on the periodic table. Here are their molar masses. Sodium is 22.99 gram per mole. Oxygen is 15.999 gram per mole. Sulfur is 32.07. Cool. And I gave you the formula is Na₂SO₄. It says, how many total atoms are in sodium sulfate right here? Well, there's actually two NAs. There are two NAs. Trying to write that here, sorry. Two NAs plus one sulfur plus, you see, 4 oxygen, right? And there's no number next to S. That's why I said there's only one sulfur. There's a little 2 next to Na. That's 2 NAs. And then there's a little 4 next to O. That's 4 O's. That's a total of 4 plus 1 plus 2. That's 7 atoms total. If I wanted to draw sodium sulfate, let's draw, here's Na. I could do 4 O's. And then there'll be 2 NAs. That's Na₂SO₄. And there's a total of 7 atoms. All right, now I purposely asked this question a little bit differently, but I want to make sure you recognize it's the same thing. It says, what is the mass of 1 mole of sodium sulfate? Which we already know is Na₂SO₄. The mass of 1 mole is the same thing as saying, what is the molar mass? So now I'm going to take the counting of these atoms, and then I'm going to use the molar masses on the periodic table. I'm going to add them all up, and that's going to help me get the molar mass of this sodium sulfate. So there's 2 NAs, so I'll need 2 times the molar mass of Na, which is 22.99 grams. I'm going to add that to 1 sulfur, so 1 times 32.07 grams. And I'm going to add that to 4 oxygens, 4 times 15.999 grams. If I add up all of these masses, 2 times 22.99 is about 45.98. I've got 1 of the 32.07. 4 times 15.999 is about 64 grams. Adding them all together, I get a molar mass of 142.05 grams per mole. Final answer. And then finally, last one on the bottom of this page here says, find the mass of 0.750 moles of Na₂SO₄. Well, I already got the molar mass in the previous question. All of these are related to, look, all of these refer to sodium sulfate. If I want the mass, how do I solve for mass? Well, the only equation that gives me mass right here is if I do moles times molar mass is equal to mass. So moles times molar mass. I already have the moles is 0.75. I'm going to underline that, right? Oops, I don't want to do that. I already have the moles is 0.750. I have the molar mass is 142.05. If I want to go and do this math now, 0.750 times 142.05 moles, grams per mole. If I plug this number into a calculator, I'll get 106.54 grams of Na₂SO₄. Final answer. All right, next page of questions, only 2 more. It says a sample contains 90 grams of glucose, C6H12O6. Oh, and look at that. I gave you the molar mass. It's about 180 grams per mole. And I ask, how many moles are there? Well, I have grams, I have molar mass, and I'm looking for moles. If I want moles, the equation to solve for moles is mass divided by molar mass. I divide. Okay, well now I'm ready. I have the mass is 90 grams. The molar mass, sorry, that got messed up. The molar mass is 180 grams per mole. If I divide these two on a calculator, 90 divided by 180, I get 0.5 moles of glucose. Final answer there. All right, last question. I want to try and get us ready for a possible power standard question related to grams and moles and molar mass and all that fun stuff. So you have to remember and before I even read the question, that 1 mole of any substance has 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd particles. And this can have a specific mass based on the periodic table. And so let's look at this question here. It says, what quantity has the same number of particles as 12 grams of carbon? Well, if I look on the periodic table, and I have a nice little space one here, look at that. A mass of about 12.0. This is 1 mole, which is 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd particles. So what this question is asking, if I jump down there, what this question is asking, okay, is which also has 1 mole? Because 12 grams of carbon is equal to 1 mole of carbon, which is 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd particles of carbon. So in order for me to have the same number of particles, I would have to have 1 mole of my substance, aka match the mass on the periodic table. Well, I did a little bit of that work for you in my video here. If I look at the molar masses on the periodic table, nitrogen is 14 grams, argon is 39.95, magnesium is 24.3, and neon is 20.18. Let's look at the choices now. Let's see if these masses here match the ones down here. So A says 7 grams of nitrogen. Well, 1 mole of nitrogen is 14 grams, not 7, so it can't be A. B says 12 grams of magnesium. Well, 1 mole of magnesium is 24.3 grams, not 12 grams. Can't be 12 grams. C, 18 grams of argon. Argon's molar mass is 39.95. It will not have the same number of particles if it was 18 grams, which leads me to the last choice, the correct answer, 20.18. Yep, that is the number that is on the periodic table. So the correct answer is choice D. So this question is asking which of these quantities has the same number of particles? I had to know that 1 mole of particles is this number, and that mole can be found, if I want to get the mass, that mass was on the periodic table. Alrighty, that is all for going over these review questions. Use this to help you get the answers and review to be prepared for the rest of this week.